Anche tu LinkedIn.
Una slide, questo giusto così? Una slide così?
Sì, sì, una slide.
Okay, good. Okay.
Good afternoon. We are coming. Please, can you hear me? Alex, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. So we just wanted to make sure that everything was running well and everything was good. Okay, so we can get started. What do you think? Yes, I think we can get started. Sorry, we are starting a couple of minutes later, but we made it at the end of the story. So thank you for coming. Thank you, everyone. Thank you also our panelists today. I'm Giambattista Dagnino. With Leah, I think we are coordinator of the session, Giambattista Dagnino and Leah Tirabeni. So let me just, we are taking just 4 or 5 minutes altogether, Leah and I. So first of all, we wanted to tell you why we are making this session, and probably Leah is going to introduce our panelists. We are going to have, just to tell you, 2 panelists in person here, and 2 other online. Okay, plus the moderator who is of course in person here. But the online will work. Don't worry. Last year we did it, and there was somebody also on remote from I think Texas with like 80 hours of difference. So today is much easier. So welcome for today's session, and the session is the only one in English. And last year was a tragedy because nobody wanted to come to the only session in English. But today and this year, I see that the situation has turned down completely on the other side. So we are very pleased of that. So basically, let me say what we are doing. We are doing something new. In a way, we are oscillating today, something new because the AI and managerial education is a new team. And we are selected today from the 2 sides of the story. Somebody look at AI at Skynet in the classroom, which is a sort of self-discussion story like the Terminator story. Other people look at AI as a problem solver or problem solver. Of course, these are extremes. Probably they won't be the reality, and we are pleased of that in a way. We don't want the 2 extreme to be happening. And but we know the story, and we also wrote an article, a short article, a couple of weeks ago on the Corriere della Sera about that. Of course, this session will give you more whys and questions than answers and hows, but this is probably the way we are doing and the way it is at this time. Maybe in a few years it will be different. I just wanted to remind 3 basic pillars of this session. First of all, and also of the whole Festival of Management by SIMA at Bocconi University. So first of all, we wanted to look for impact on practice. This is our first take and our first objective. Then we want also some driving values, some values which are basic values at the basic of the story. And I think also in using AI in the classroom is very important. And also we want to build a community at large. So community building exercise. Community at large in which we put not just academics like we do in normally in academic conferences, but also community made of people from practice, consultants or managers, of course, entrepreneurs, but also the society, the citizenship. So we wanted to, the students, we want to be part of a big community. And so basically, in a way, this kind of stuff is very important to us: impact, values, and community. I would leave you at this time just with these 3 points in mind, and I hand it out to Leah, who has been a great co-organizer. And I thank also Leah beyond also the other people. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Giambattista, for this short introduction. I'm very happy to be here and to be part of this project, which is the 2nd year of the project. And I'd like to thank you all for being here. Today, we are very pleased to have with us Emma Parry, Professor of Human Resource Management, Cranfield School of Management, Chair of the British Academy of Management, of course. Then we will have Alex Brewer, who is not on site but online, from the Prime Principal of Responsible Management Education Institution. Then we will have Christopher Tucci, Professor of Digital Strategy and Innovation from the Imperial College Business School, which is also the Vice President-elect Program Chair of the Academy of Management. And then Federico Cabizza, which is Professor of Computer Science from the University of Milano Bicocca. And also the other affiliation is Galeazzi Sant'Ambrogio Hospital, the Galeazzi Sant'Ambrogio Hospital. That's all. Finally, my special thank go to Francesco Grillo, founder of Vision Think Tank and the editorialist of the Sole 24 Ore. Thank you, Francesco, for coordinating this session. And I hope that everyone will enjoy the session and the conversation after the session. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Leah. Thanks, Joan Battista. Thanks to the Society of Management. I didn't know it, but it's really a great opportunity to think constructively on few big trends. I myself, I am in between academia, management, policy advice, a few things. I will come to Emma in a second. Emma, you will be the first because among other things, you are coming from Heathrow. At 6 o'clock, you got your flight, so I want to make sure that you do not fall asleep. You already had 3 strong Italian coffees here. But before I go to Emma, let me introduce a little bit a follow-up of Giovan Battista and Leah's introduction. The title of this plenary is about artificial intelligence and managerial education. I think that we need to pause every time we talk about artificial intelligence on one of those questions that academics like a lot, which is about definition. We should always start to sort of try to define what are we talking about. We should also define what managerial education is about, but you know, artificial intelligence is very clearly in need to better understand what are we talking about. Artificial intelligence is not something which has been invented 14 months ago by OpenAI. No? Yes, today probably this is what I sort of understood from you, the speakers and the introducers. We are mostly talking about that kind of artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence is a much older notion. Certainly, if we mean by artificial intelligence machine learning has been around for at least a couple of decades. Amazon, Twitter do use machine learning in a big way, no? To customize the ranking of ads or news to each individual. The notion of artificial intelligence necessarily needs us to go back to, of course, your countrymate Alan Turing. It's a must, you know. He was the one to define what we should mean by intelligent robot, let's say. Very interesting. And by the way, I think today by artificial intelligence, we mostly mean something that is able to do 2 things. Number one, the large language models analyze in real time, basically, vast amount of data, of information, mostly publicly accessible. And number two, using natural language. Federico, you may correct me because you are a proper computer scientist or something, but that's from my user point of view is what are we talking about. This very thing is capable to really modify in a big way the nature of many business, government activities, and also managerial education. Joan Battista told me few times that we shouldn't talk about research, and we are not going to do that, Joan Battista, but still, even research is very heavily impacted by large language models, let's say. In any case, talking about the impact of artificial intelligence on managerial education, there are at least three possible ways to give an interpretation of what are we talking about. And then you will be the first to give some. But it's I'm not asking you to provide a question. It's just like about a little bit opening the debate. Because number one, artificial intelligence can, at very minimum level, can just be meant, or large language models, as a tool, a tool to do teaching that becomes more and more individualized. This applies to anything that we teach, even in a primary school. Artificial intelligence can personalize the rhythm, the intensity, the speed of what we are teaching. So it is a tool. Again, it's a very big thing, as all students of the world know, in terms of modifying the nature of exams. We in Vision and Value do in the consulting firm that I'm we give an essay to be drafted by the candidates, and I guess a number of them are using artificial intelligence to answer to their question. So it is a tool. Number two, on a much higher level, artificial intelligence is something that is will modify very profoundly the nature of all industries that managers try to manage, from insurance to pharmaceutical, you name it. Actually, artificial intelligence will also make the boundaries between industries to even further evaporate, which means that the real the job of being a manager will probably profoundly change. So this is number two. Number three, and this is again applies to almost everything. Artificial intelligence will force everybody to find jobs that artificial intelligence is not taking away from us. And these jobs will force us to be interdisciplinary, which is something which is even more than pluridisciplinary. There are people that I'm thinking about at the University of Southern California, as we mentioned, that are very much, but not only in the United States, that are working on how universities should reorganize themselves around the challenge of artificial intelligence. I will pass to you, Emma, so with these issues about what we are really talking about. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Francesco. And just to say, I was on a very early flight this morning, but I've had 3 cups of coffee since I've been here, so it will be fine. Thank you for those comments. Just to say one more thing about my background before I just give my brief comments. I am not a computer scientist or a data scientist. I will leave that to Federico to talk more from that perspective. I run a centre called the Changing World of Work group at Cranfield. So my interest in AI is really very much in the impact of AI on things like skills, the way we work, and of course in higher education, in how we teach and how we research. And I thought Gianbattista's comments at the beginning were really useful when he talked about the polarized, very different views of AI. Because in my experience, we really either have quite a utopian view, so we see AI as the answer to our problems, the problem solver, as you said. In academia, we say it's going to stop us ever having to do marking again. Not sure that's true. Or we see it really what I would call a more dystopian view. And in academia, we talk a lot about academic misconduct. And people in a meeting I was in yesterday were talking about how everyone's cheating now that we have generative AI. But of course, the truth is somewhere in the middle. And I just wanted to use my comments to think a little, very briefly, about some of the opportunities. Really, I guess AI as a tool, to use Francesco's three categories, but really then to focus, I guess, more on it as a transformer of skills and a transformer of work. Because I think for those of us that work in management or managerial education, that's probably where it's most interesting to us. So I think there are lots of opportunities for us in education, and I think Francesco highlighted those quite well. Really, in terms of personalisation of learning, my field's human resource management. We're really thinking about how we use that to personalise the way we interact with employees. Of course, marketers have been drawing on this for a while in terms of how they interact with potential customers. Opportunities around accessibility, around inclusion, around efficiencies, around creativity. And we know there are lots of challenges that I'm sure Federico would talk about more eloquently than me, around data, around bias within data or within the algorithms themselves, around fairness, and around the possibilities for misuse, which I think is where a lot of my sector's focused on, unfortunately. What I wanted to use kind of most of my 5 minutes for was just really to ask some broader questions, because what I'm more interested in is what the impact of AI is for the curriculum, what we should be teaching. So really around that transformer of skills that Francesco mentioned. And a couple of things to say there. At a basic level, and I think where we tend to concentrate at the moment, it's about digital skills and this constant need to upskill. I've done some work recently. I'm not saying the research word, Gianbattista, but I've done some work recently, and estimations suggest that the vast majority, literally around 80% of the workforce, will be underqualified by 2030 in terms of both digital skills, but also the kind of management skills that we will need because of the way that work is changing. And I think that's quite stark for those of us that work in the kind of people, HR, upskilling education space. So this is a real opportunity for us to think about how we do that. And actually the largest gap, perhaps not surprisingly, is in people that have that combination of technology skills, so digital skills and the human skills, and people that can bring that together, because that's what the future will need probably. We also need to think about how leadership is changing. So are we teaching people to lead within organizations where there's a combination of technology and people? Are we thinking about how our organizations are structured? How are organizations designed if AI is taking some of the work for us? There's this idea that we're going to lose the middle of organizations because AI or other technologies will take that strata of the organization. One of the things we need to think a lot about in education, I think, is around what our reliance on technology might mean for some of the softer skills. So some of the conversations I've heard are around dehumanization. How do we develop personal skills, some of the more human skills in people, if they're becoming more and more reliant on technology, including AI? But also, if we're using generative AI to answer questions, where does the critical thinking come from? How do we learn to critique? And actually, do we need critical thinking skills more? Because we need to be able to evaluate what's coming out of generative AI and recognize where the limitations are in that. So lots of questions there. And in my world in HR, one of the biggest challenges for us is that actually the skills we need are not staying static. You know, we need to be constantly upskilling and reskilling our people as these change. And how do we manage that as leaders and managers within our organizations? If we even just think about technology, you know, 5 years ago, you know, we were all talking about one type of technology. Then 2020, it all became about communication technology, about Zoom and Teams. And now it's about writing prompts and prompt engineering for AI. What will we be talking about in a couple of years' time? And this upskilling and reskilling is really important for us. And lots of implications of that as well, I think, around talent management, around career paths, around how we plan our workforce, so strategic workforce planning, and how we think about, we design jobs and tasks and organizations. And in terms of managerial education, I'm not sure we're really ready at the moment to bring those kind of things into our learning. I don't know how well we're doing that. So I'd be really interesting to hear from Chris and others at other institutions what they think about how well that's working. But for me, this is the biggest challenge for us is in what we think the skills are in terms of leading organizations that look different and leading people that are working in a different way. And I'll leave you with that for a moment.
Federico, is your turn now. If you can a little bit elaborate also on the definition of artificial intelligence that we were talking about. And Chris Tucci, you will be the next. And do use Teams, because I saw an email from Chris that was asking which mean does he want to use.
Thank you very much. I wanted to sit down because I didn't want to adopt the teaching mood. For me, it's more small talks with you. But I've been given the hat or a cap of the computer scientist. Actually, I'm not a computer scientist. I don't know if I'm in the wrong room. I'm a computer engineer, but actually I'm a design scientist. So I design tools and study the best way in which people should interact with these tools to improve what we want to improve in a particular work setting. So I think that my contribution could be aimed at the first topic you put on the table. It's a pity that we don't have them because I noticed that we don't know exactly how work will change in the next few months or years, thanks to this. No, this one. Okay. And also, if I'm not wrong, we don't know really how artificial intelligence could become a proficient, an effective teaching tool. So I think that for now, we should focus on the first topic, that is about what we want managers to learn and how we have to change our curricula, our syllabus to have managers learn new skills or all the skills that must be in some way adapted to the new market and to the new situation. So obviously in this room, everyone here knows what and who managers are, people who are called to manage work processes and the people, the workers involved in these work processes. But maybe I should be honest, frank, clear, explicit on what I mean with artificial intelligence. Obviously, now we have all a consensus definition that is available of artificial intelligence. It is written down on a European regulation. So it's clear. Well, not so much because it's a particularly vague and wide definition, as usually legal definitions are. But we know that we are talking about powerful tools that are capable to influence the environment with which they interact. But it's also important for me, it's written AI, but for me, it could be read advanced informatics with an opportunity to be read also in terms of augmented human intelligence. So it's always AI, but we can interpret it depending on the perspective we wish to adopt. So if we consider this kind of tool, a tool by which to augment work processes, we have also to understand exactly what we really want to augment. So, in my opinion, the very first skill that managers should acquire to be ready to the new context in which AI could be a driver, a factor for competitive advantage, should be able to frame the problem rather than finding the solution, finding the right way to solve the problem. So if we want to frame the problem of how to take advantage of these tools, in my opinion, we can consider three big questions. The first one, what to automate. That means to identify the tasks that should be automated with this powerful tool that is artificial intelligence. But more than that, better than this, we should try to understand what parts of each work process, of each work task, we should automate. Because it makes a big difference if we want to automate judgment tasks or creative tasks or tasks in which the problem space is explored to find viable solutions. Or even if we want just to automate manual tasks like text production tasks. So we have to understand what we want to automate, and the managers are called to understand this. And then we have also to understand how much we should automate those tasks or those components, the so-called detailed working activities that every task encompasses. And how much means also to understand the level of automation, how much we want to delegate to these kind of tools that are quite autonomous by the very definition of AI and can also adapt to the context, always depending on the definition, and to understand how much to automate and also what to automate is also important. The last question, maybe the most important one, that is why we want to automate. Obviously, we want to improve something like efficiency, so we want to reduce costs, we want to improve effectiveness, we want to improve maybe also even the worker satisfaction, the comfort. No, the fact that they can devote themselves to better tasks, more creative tasks, more interpersonal relational tasks instead of dealing with the documents or administrative tasks. So once we have clear in mind, and managers have to have clear in mind the reasons, the objectives, so we could also rephrase this question in terms of objective or goal identification, then we can understand how to address, if not to answer, the first two questions. What to automate and how to automate. And these are not, how to say, questions that are given for granted. Maybe during the years, digitization of work processes is a long process that maybe began in the 70s, the 80s. The personal computing revolution also in the 90s has changed a little bit the scenario. Now AI that I see as advanced informatics, so not really a big deal, a big difference with respect to the past, now has put these kind of questions even more up front. And this means that managers do really have to be serious about these questions even more than in the past. And we have to teach them how to, especially how to frame these phenomena that are very complex and obviously will depend on the context when they are in some way expressed by the work settings where the managers work. So in my opinion, our main mission in managerial education is to help these people frame the problem, frame the question in a proper way and also in a responsible way. The last word that I would leave to share for the discussion is the word sustainability. Obviously, it's an important and quite common word about the fact that these technologies could consume a lot of natural resources. This is environmental sustainability, but there are many other kinds of sustainability, and I would like to focus on the social and the human sustainability. Managers have to understand that the more they delegate in a work process to AI, the less they are requiring from workers. And so in some way they are nurturing a process we don't really know about the fact that these people could be de-skilled or re-skilled in ways that maybe undermine very important skills. I'm talking now of the skills of the workers, not of the managers, of the people who are managed by the managers. And so I think that now more than ever, we have to have managers be responsible for their work and also be aware of the consequences of automating without minding about these three questions: what to automate, how to automate, and why. Thank you.
Okay, before I give the word to Chris Tucci, who is in London at Imperial College, let me advise Alex Brewer, who is going to speak after Chris, and also do prepare some question so that we can then answer from here. So Chris, it's your turn.
Great. Thank you very much. Let's see if he can pull me up there on the screen. And there I am. Hi, everybody. Very sorry. Oh, thank you for waving there. Sorry to miss the festival this year. I really thank you for the invitation. I would love to be there in person, and I hope that maybe next year I can come. And be with you in person. I was something like quadruple booked today. One thing I think is really interesting here is that right now we're all practitioners, which is kind of an unusual role, at least for me. I don't think of myself as a practitioner, but here I'm actually talking about practitioner things. And one of the things that I've been working on, actually, I have a new gig that I'm part-time right now, creating a new university in Saudi Arabia, in the NEOM region. And, I'm working on a lot of curriculum design, new technology in the classroom. And so I'm really feeling like I'm a kind of a practitioner in this area. And I'm curious, and I love hearing all of these comments about what other people are doing and thinking about. One thing that I've been thinking about a lot lately has been, new AI business models. And in this space, one of the things that stands out, and it's been mentioned a couple times already, is sort of this hyper specialization due to artificial intelligence. And I think that's a really interesting area. It has a lot of some pluses and minuses. Let me just give you a couple ideas about some of the things I'm actually working on right now or even thinking about. One of them is sort of using it as a teacher, AI used in the classroom for hyper specialization. So that can range from everything from you develop a chatbot, which we've just tried this year at Imperial, the students can interact with. That's basically you upload materials for the class or so forth, and they can have an interactive personal experience with the chat bot. And the next step in that, of course, is to make a kind of an avatar or a deep fake. And I'm actually working on this right now, making a deep fake and then it's not a hyper personalized one. It's just a way to update your material really quickly. So imagine, because right now I'm teaching digital transformation, digital technologies, and so forth, AI in business, and these things are changing all the time. And I can't just be running to the studio every 2 weeks to make new material up. So one of the thoughts was, why don't we make an avatar and make a deep fake of me, and then when something changes in the field, I can just go in and change and like edit a script, and it'll automatically redo it with my voice, with my correct movements. You've probably seen some of these demos lately that show how you could interpret the words on a script. And you could interpret the words on a script, and then the avatar will actually change its, the look on his or her face to reflect that. So I think this is quite a very interesting development, and and then of course you could go even further and have even like a specialized avatar that does individualized instruction for students, which I think is quite interesting. Of course, there are off-the-shelf product services out there right now that are more like beta testing services where students can upload materials, and then they can use the system will help them study by quizzing them on the material. So I think this is quite nice. Another area that I think is very interesting is the idea of having cameras or monitors or sensors in the classroom, and kind of keeping track of who's engaged and who's not engaged, or when people are bored, or when, and this could be a service for the professor, or it could be a service to help the students. Like, maybe you need to give this person extra material in this certain area. Now, this obviously has some major sort of privacy implications, right? Because now you're monitoring people in a classroom, and they would have to agree to that, which is but it's something that we need to address because it's probably going to happen in the next couple years. So, so I think that's quite interesting. Another thing that I think is very interesting right now is the learning not only about the material, but about prompt engineering, let's just say. So I don't consider it cheating for people to use LLMs. I think it's actually healthy for us to have students use them. And so, we'll give them an essay, and then instead of them answering the essay, we'll say, type it into an LLM, or maybe compare a couple different ones, or try different ways of approaching this essay. And then what they can do is they can write a critique of the responses that they got from different LLMs, which I think is quite interesting thing. Finally, let me talk a little bit about content. So if we're teaching content, I feel like the digital strategy element of this doesn't change very much, with regard to AI, just new technology applied to the same thinking in terms of, cost, efficiency, new products, new services, new business models. How do you think about that sort of thing? So I feel like that's not going to change very much in terms of that kind of content. We do teach a new module called, I'm teaching different modules. One of them is called AI Ventures, where we talk about entrepreneurship, but we also give them some AI specific information, such as data network effects, why they're important, and some specific things in that space. So that's kind of interesting. Maybe we'll give them some technology training, but again, I think a lot of the technology things are becoming more or less obsolete. Let's just say software engineering is getting automated and so forth. And my last comment about automation is, automation is, I'm studying automation in other contexts, and yet it can be applied to us too. So, yes, we mentioned, I think Emma mentioned grading or marking as something that could be automated. And that's, that's kind of, I mean, of course, I couldn't wait for that moment to happen when we can fully automate this. But do we really want to automate promotions of professors? Could do. It's only one step past the marking of student exams, right? So I think we have to tread cautiously here And I've been working on a project with Gianvito Lanzola, Margherita Pagani, on thinking about why and when we can automate decisions. And I think this can be equally applied to the classroom. So let me stop there. Thank you very much, guys, and look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much, Chris. Alex, it's your turn. I would also ask you a little bit to mention the platform you are developing. By the way, you are connecting yourself from New York now.
No, not from New York currently. I'm in Rotterdam for the past month or so.
Okay, good. Good enough. Okay, so if you want to develop a little bit about the knowledge management platform for connecting business schools.
Yeah. So work at managing a project called Prime Commons. It's a surveying system developed by Prime to investigate organizations' implementation of responsible management education through their educational materials, institutional storytelling, policies, and their answers to a questionnaire, depending on the respondent. We use this platform both to allow universities to commit themselves to Prime standards and to tell us more of their story than they would in other accreditation agencies or under different accreditation strategies. We also use this to look at what kind of tools we can develop to augment educators and institutions to allow both for the optimization of curricula at the classroom level and also at the institution level. We do try to analyze institutional change and allow recommendations to be delivered to help accelerate the institutional change, and this is all based on the user's selected strategies. And thanks for the point to talk about this now as we launch the platform at the end of this month, and we're quite excited to have the first 800 organizations on it this year. If all goes well, hopefully you'll see this also at the UNGC level applied to businesses. I'd like to talk a little bit about not just what is the nature of AI or in application, but kind of how did we get here? So what is this boom? So there's been a lot of booms in AI in the past 100 years. But recently we surpassed compute allocations. This last set of big companies developing foundational models, the question of how much compute is required came before they started training. They really thought about how big will we need to go to get to this point. Also, the popularization of generative interface, so stuff like ChatGPT, also helped popularize this and allow a very large amount of people to use this service. The question of what timeline are we in? You hear a lot about fast takeoff, slow takeoff, things along these lines. We do see that context windows or how much text you can give the models and also the accuracy here truly does skyrocket. It went from quite good to very exceptional in a short amount of time. And it doesn't seem like we'll be slowing down anytime soon. If this does continue, it does look to be fast takeoff, and maybe conversations like this we'll look back at when just smile at. But with this, is it more worries or is it next open door? So entire languages are being created now focused on the expression of functions built to interface with these models. And this is where you start to see a large amount of usefulness for I wanted to grade my curriculum, but I want it also to be accurate. I don't want to give two students a different score if their work is quite similar. Returning things that aren't just long form sentences, but also an analysis with a true or false response, breaking this down into smaller binary bits, helps a lot with the robustness of these systems. As you see these languages develop and they become more useful and more used, these type of applications will only continue to grow in popularity and in spread. Thankfully, this is my personal area of work and passion. I'm very lucky to do this. I work primarily as a data scientist at the intersection of test theory, information theory, and machine learning application. I also work as a senior manager at Prime for the Commons project. On the topic of these values, as at least in popular discourse, there's quite a large split between people that believe that the future will be bright because of this or that it jeopardizes it. And it was mentioned earlier, is AI Skynet in the classroom? And I think it's a really valid concern for regulation, but I don't know if it's a call for a doom scenario. Some things like fertilizer, for example, it's incredibly valuable, but has a very legitimate reason for regulation. This helped unlock previous hard resource limits, which we might face now, either in coordination of systems, but also in just how much information and intelligence one human can have. It doesn't seem like we stopped at electrification or proliferation of the internet. I don't believe that we would stop now. So looking forward, I think it's very, very important to get classes like skill courses for Excel, as you saw in the early 2000s, out and running now for generative applications. Understanding what is made by a generative system and what is not. Reading about whether it's accounts that look real, but really they're not, or videos that given a bit more time and given a bit more care, they would pass as real. Exposure and early education on this is probably for the best in any scenario that we're in. And really starting to think not just about how managers will be using this technology, but how will managers deal with others using the technology. If you have one person that is highly skilled in some of these systems, their outward effect, it seems to be one of the largest multiplicative forces that we see one person to have. And the concept of how do you deal with those actors, I don't see heavily investigated in academia or literature currently. I'd really recommend that this is thought of.
Thank you, Alex. Thanks a lot. Question. If you can come here. Say your name, affiliation.
Hi, everybody. My name is Olga. I'm a student at Università Statale. I had a less of, let's say, a visionary question and more practical one regarding the prompt engineering that was mentioned already several times today. Let's say it is now hyping to a certain extent in the IT field. I saw a lot of job openings, for example, requesting particularly prompt engineers. And I wanted to ask if you think that this is a sort of a crucial skill that already should be, let's say, that managers already should acquire, that should be already taught to managers on the organizational level. Like, for example, Zoom and Teams were when the pandemic happened. Like, nobody had most of the people didn't have these skills. And then pandemic happened, you need to know how to use Zoom and Teams. So do you think it is so important, or should we figure out the philosophical part first? So like what to use, how to use, why to use this kind of stuff, and then teach managers actually like how to use prompts, for example, or how to differentiate deepfake from a real video. So this kind of things.
Differentiate?
Deepfake from a real video.
Okay.
So, but mostly, let's say, mostly it was regarding prompt engineering.
Okay.
Thank you. And yes, if there are like some sources, for example, that you know that you recommend that, okay, like for prompt engineering, this is a vital skill and this is where you can learn it and you can give some advice, would highly appreciate it. Thank you.
Question? Joan Battista, you have a question? Do you have any other question?
Address that one. I could address that question if you like.
Okay.
I could make a start at it if you like.
Okay.
It's an excellent question. I think that's why I'm using it in this. Yes, I believe that people should learn these skills. That's why I'm doing it like this in my class, in my AI Ventures class. So basically, they're learning about the material, but they're also learning about prompt engineering, because if you just type in an essay prompt, or if you just type in a question on ChatGPT, or you're going to get probably not a very good answer, and there's a lot of reasons for that, the way these things are set up, and so you have to kind of learn to craft your question. And so that's why I usually recommend they do it multiple times. They try different LLMs out, and then they're able to make a critique of it, but they're also learning the material by engaging with the material of that particular module. At the same time, they're also learning how to make better questions and try and get a better answer out of some of these systems. So and I feel like it's really more like learning by doing as opposed to reading about it. I mean, you just go on there and try ask some question about a subject that you care about, and then try and limit the responses a little bit more, and try and test different ways of approaching it. And a really good way of doing that is take an exam perhaps that you did, in the prior year, and try and type that in a bunch of several different LLMs, and see if you can come up with a credible answer or not, based on how you're asking and phrasing these questions. So that would be my quick answer to that question.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Federico is almost computer science. Yeah, you can. Okay.
Can you hear me from back also if I?
Probably it's a little bit better here. We have some problems of audio, in fact.
Yeah, better, much better. Yes, I generally agree with what Christopher said. What I would like to emphasize about prompt engineering that, as you know, I never mentioned, is that first of all, it's a sort of misnomer, because I don't know why we should have an engineering approach to prompting to create the proper prompt to.
By the way, do we want to define what prompt engineering is also for my sake?
Yes, but it's just a buzzword where we want to be very systematic, we're very structured in terms of what we ask these systems to do for us. It's like querying. It's like inputting some data so that the systems can satisfy us more. So first of all, I would say that framing this skill as a kind of engineering is probably misleading us, because it's more a matter of understanding what we really need from these systems and how to frame it, how to put in words. So probably it's a matter of describing the context, describing our goals, describing, for example, what we expect. So it's not really something an engineer would do, applying a methodology or an abstract architecture or I don't know what. Then it's also something that I think it's a fad, because these models are changing very fast. Their skills, where their capabilities are improving overnight. In a matter of weeks, we can have better versions of foundation models. So I think that what worked with the model could not work with another model that is much better than the previous one to understand us. So maybe if we just adopt the same way to put things down, to describe our task to these systems, we are constraining their output so much that we are missing something that could be creative. So in some way, I think we should stick to the philosophical things, as the person put the question down. It's about really understanding how to frame the problems, how to frame what we need, and to be open to a dialectical relationship. Probably we have to move beyond the idea of querying a search engine, because these models are not search engines. Their intended use is not to search for information, but to create text, to create plausible conversations. And we should engage in a more relational interaction with these systems. So we should really abandon the systematic way of thinking of engineers to adopt a more soft skill based interaction. That's my personal opinion.
Yeah. Totally agree. If I can say one thing on this very issue, just a small story. We have done with our think tank. We did a report on the limits and the merits of European regulation of digital. It was 2 years ago, and we have been doing a sort of roadshow of this thing. And in only 2 years, we are at the third technological fad that is forcing us to sort of not rewrite the report, but at least, to review it, because we had Web 3.0. It was about changing everything. Metaverse, which was a fad from the start. It was really very, very, and now artificially, quote unquote, artificial in there. And you always have to and this is, to us, it was a little bit of a problem. But imagine the poor people trying to regulate this phenomena from Brussels. You know, they even did the artificial intelligence sort of whatever act, you know, it was draft before ChatGPT. Then they had to start all over again. It was like, and this is a sort of cognitive problem. This is the word. It's a cognitive problem. It's an epistemological problem. What do we ask ourselves? Probably philosophical questions, not the right exactly word that I would use. Although I respect philosophy in a very big way, even being a poor economist. But you need to probably, as Federico was saying, you start from the problem you want to solve, and then you think about the technologies that can help you to solve the problem. She's not probably Emma, Christopher, or well, Alex. You wanna? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe a little bit about the engineering and philosophical split there. I think it is quite. I agree with the point that we should be focusing on the philosophical approach, but probably not for the same reason. I do believe that prompt engineering in the commonplace terminology might not be a form of engineering. I think that misnomer is correct, but in the sense of prompt systems, there is a formal sect of engineers that do work on this. And I think philosophically understanding the difference between changing your prompt from 9 lines to 15 lines and adding a bit of information to try and get a different response, and formally writing a system that will route your queries and adjust your queries depending on the subject of them, and to allow for this thing that's not a search, but it's some form of a probabilistic search based on satisfying human expectation on text. Understanding the philosophical split there, probably understanding more about why not to publicly release good prompts as they will get trained on, and agreeing that models will get better. Learning how to write great prompts will probably be overshadowed by a model understanding what you meant in a more simple form.
Alex? Hey, Emma. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
It works. Okay, I have just 2 very brief points on that, just to take a slightly different perspective, and I agree with everything that's been said. For me, what's useful in understanding a bit about prompt engineering or framing the problem is really understanding a little bit about how the technology, the AI, the algorithms work. So both understanding what's going on and also what the limitations are of these systems. And I think as managers, in a way, that's more important for us. I mean, even not as managers, as a life skill, to understand a bit about how, you know, what the limitations are, so we can really actually draw on data and information coming out of these systems. And whatever you want to call it, prompt engineering or whatever, helps a little bit when you interact with the system to do that. The other thing from my, I guess, HR people management perspective that I would say, it's, for me, it's way down the list of priorities in terms of managers. And actually what we're also seeing is, as we're relying on digital tools, AI, and other tools for more and more, actually the human skills, some of the skills in dealing with complexity, the interpersonal skills are becoming more important, you know, emotional intelligence and things like that. So I'm a little bit disappointed that this is cropping up on job adverts for managers, because actually I think it's, you know, actually the other stuff is becoming more important.
I'm writing my thesis, and I tried to use ChatGPT and like some other AI systems to ask some questions regarding my research. Thank you. Yeah, regarding my research, and the answers that I got, like, I sincerely didn't like them, and maybe it was because I didn't form my question correctly. So I was like, okay, maybe I am missing this skill. So also, let's say there was a conference on AI a couple of weeks ago. So there was this also the things about the prompt engineering is becoming like an important skill. Yeah, and that's why I was wondering. So if it is something in general that in the whole AI discourse people should have, or let's say, first of all, yes, we should focus on philosophical part and understanding why, on understanding like interpersonal connections, and let's say this is more important, this is a higher priority, and the LLMs will adjust themselves in a couple of years that you will not need to be able to write prompts. So that's why I was wondering.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it's about, I mean, I think it's about framing the problem. It's also, I really like Chris's approach to this, because for me, it's not only about being able to get information out of the systems, it's about being able to critique them. So you saying you didn't like the answers, you know, for me, that's the beginning of that process of critiquing and understanding how you interact with the system more effectively. And that's the important bit for me.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you, Emma. Other question? By the way, on that front, there was a famous study from Oxford Martin School, sort of 10 years ago, that many people may know. It's the impact of automation on jobs. Exactly. And it was funny that that time, the big impact, the jobs which were more likely to be replaced by quote unquote automation were sort of teleclerk and this kind of people. By the way, the one that was less likely to be replaced was the priest. That's quite interesting for you to know. And now this is a completely different thing. It's not automation any longer. And Osborne, said, a few days, a couple of months ago, was a software programmer, the one that risked the most, which is probably sort of related to your question of on prompt engineering. That is also something that I heard many times, but I didn't understand what is really about. Do we have other question from the floor?
I have a comment
Joan
on
Battista
that.
Orlia, you have a question.
I have a comment on your comment.
Okay.
Which is
you have a comment on my comment. Okay.
Yes, which is that everybody should search online for Convention of Protestants, Germany, church service. Okay. So basically, this was fairly recently. It was a few months ago. There was a convention of Protestants in Germany, and they had a church service. And the person delivering there was an avatar that delivered the sermon, and it was written entirely by LLM, and it was an avatar, a fake digital image. And people in the audience, they interviewed them afterwards, said that they loved it, and they actually got a lot of enlightenment out of it. So I would be, I might be worried if I were a priest.
Yeah, one of the things that computers are supposed not to replace, to reproduce so easily is the so-called empathy, which is something that priest should have, for instance. And we all know. We were just talking this morning in a different session about Blade Runner, this attempt of the robot to even feel feelings, which was not really successful. Time to Die, the last words in Blade Runner. Do we have other? Do we have questions? And certainly, yes, AI will not replace, at least I hope, Michelangelo or Alessandro Del Piero scoring. No, that's a different question. That kind of creativity is a little bit. Sorry?
Midjourney. Midjourney and this kind of software might not agree with you as soon as it comes to.
With Alessandro Del Piero, robot replacing. Actually.
There is AI that can produce art.
Okay. Okay.
This is like, let's say,
No.
might be still open to discussion.
Yeah. I hope that Michelangelo cannot be replaced by. I hope that's okay. Question. I have a short question for you all, just to wrap up. As you all know very well, there is a debate. You have a question? No, you have a question. No. Yes, you do. Okay, if you can come here for a second. Hey. From? Huh? Okay. You.
Okay.
It's a sort of relative man.
Okay. Okay. So I have a question. I am a student. I'm Giovanni. Do
From
you
which university?
ESP and Turin?
Turin, Paris, and
Yes, Paris, Warsaw, Berlin, Madrid. I have a question. Do you think AI would be able to fire people in the future? And if yes, why not? And if yes, why?
question.
Yeah.
And
I would say most likely, looking at how performance is ran at some large tech companies, whether it's the number of lines that you write or your participation in certain meetings. I think a lot of this is already done quantitatively and based on probably more narrow performance metrics than some of these AI models could use today. So I would say yes, as a natural form of progression, and I think it might be as automated as today, and it could be better criteria. Again, probably not a great scenario for humanity if all jobs are done by this and if these performance metrics are very narrow.
Chris?
Yes,
Sorry,
it's already happening. It's already happening. You can search online for Amazon warehouse fired by AI. Just search for it, and you're going to see that it's being automated and being tested by different companies that actually will have monitor people and fire them by email. And it's actually a quite sobering phenomenon.
Giovanni, you want to rephrase it?
Yeah. So in the future, I was thinking, do you think that AI, an avatar, for example, could be able to tell the person that they are fired and live, like instead of a human?
No, you can say that.
We need a mic, otherwise they cannot hear us.
I can stand up if you want quickly.
No, we
I
can
was just-
the other.
I have quite a loud voice anyway, but I think it's difficult for the people on screen. I was just going to say, I think the technology is certainly there to do that now, certainly to make the decision. And I think we will see that. I think in terms of good practice, and if we think about things that we were just talking about empathy and emotional intelligence, as an HR person, that makes me really uncomfortable. And I'm just going to use this moment to challenge something actually that Chris said earlier, because Chris made a joke earlier about making promotion decisions of professors. Maybe not professors, but promotion decisions are also already being made using machine learning. So we're there, but it's the interaction part that would worry me more, I think.
There you go.
So maybe practically speaking, AI is already firing people, that is influencing real people, humans who can fire other people. But as you know, this would be against the law, because the regulation, the European regulation, and also the GDPR at the side, stipulate that some decisions that are legally relevant should not be delegated to automatic decision making, that is ADM. But obviously, this is the law, and then in social technical settings, obviously humans can appropriate the law in peculiar, in idiosyncratic ways. So humans having the power to fire people can be influenced and will and are. But I would like to add that in regards to the capability to communicate delicate stuff like the decision to fire, I think that these kind of models can be much better than we guess and think. For example, there was published a couple of months ago an article on JAMA that is a quite good, one of the best, most impacted journals in the medicine world, that compared the discourses that real doctors and models like ChatGPT Plus did to convey the bad news that patients got a serious disease like cancer, without obviously telling what messages were written by humans and the AI. And humans, the subjects, found the messages written by the AI much more empathic. And that was a piece of literature that made an impact, at least at the impression level, in the medical field. And I think that other fields could experience similar studies and similar findings, because maybe we are undervaluing the power, the persuasive power of these models. Obviously, we need a body. We need to have a person in front of us, but also Optimus by Tesla or other anthropomorphic robots maybe are not too bad if engineers give them a credible face or face expression. So I don't know. At the present time, they are quite good in expressing empathy. Maybe one day, not too late, not too far in the future, we will also have these kind of roles in real life, in real life situations.
Yeah, if I can say on that, Emma. Yeah.
The highlight, because I just wanted to say one more thing about that. And for me, the important question, because we've answered your question, which was, can AI sack someone? The question for me that we really perhaps should be reflecting on is, should AI be able to sack someone or promote someone?
Yeah. And on that question of should, my point is what would make a little bit uncomfortable from my point of view is that well, if we are again, it's a question of definition. If by artificial intelligence now we are talking about chat like ChatGPT or Gemini, those are sort of program, if I can say so, to be very politically correct, to be, as somebody says, with incorrectly, quote unquote, woke, no? Perfect, in a sense, very balanced. Now, the reality is that evolution of companies, of nature, is made through mistakes. You need to have mistakes. You need to have, from time to time, nonsensical, and this is what, to me, makes Michelangelo and Alessandro Del Piero different from a robot. You need to have mistakes. You need to make sense which do not make sense, to make natural evolution, like in the Darwin mind, to evolve. And this is also very essential in competition among firms. And that kind of chat, Gemini, and ChatGPT, which is now 4.0, whatever it is a little bit like program not to be quote unquote perfect, which is something that would make competition not working any longer, paradoxically. I don't know if you, because you also need intuition, you also need rage, like this is the one that makes Michelangelo be different from.
Could I just make a couple?
Exactly, and then you need.
Okay, sorry.
You need. That's the way natural evolution works, according to Darwin, which is also, by the way, the foundation of how markets were supposed to function. Then you need a system to select the right quote unquote mistake for make things to. And these things are normally happening also just by case, not planned, which is something that robots like the poor Blade Runner were not programmed to do. So this is what I think it would. It's not just a question of not being human any longer, but also possibly destroying what we mean by competition, by natural selection, by life, no, which is also made in that very casual sort of ways. If I can, do we have other questions? Ramin is an engineer, so please be aware.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ramin. I'm working with Francesco. First of all, I have a comment on her Mid-Journey stuff that I'm a designer as well. So I have to tell you that DaVinci's works is some sort of like having a spirits for me. Like Mid-Journey does not have, or ChatGPT for the image generation. They are for me not spiritual, let's say. And for the question, I have a question regarding to the discrimination of the AI that is happening and the algorithm that the Amazon that Francesco was saying that you can see the proposal of these companies. We can see based on algorithm of, I don't know how do they like find what do you need, but I know that they can propose you cheaper or more expensive products. So, and this is happening for different types of like society, like for instance, if you are low paid or like you are higher paid. So my question is that how we can make this like more at least something that does not make the society upset with this fact. I know that it's advertisement, it's marketing, but at least there is something that we can do to make it more easier and less upset for the whole society. Let's say that was it. Thank you.
Comments or answer to this? Enrico, yeah. You are doing a little bit of natural training.
As they say, hallucination is a feature, not a bug, because it can have also positive side effects, like the fact that we need mistakes to be creative, to discover unanticipated, unintended goals and aims. Yes, but the discrimination thing is also a matter of what feature is really designed to be a feature and what is a failure of this feature, so a bug. Because in some cases, probably it's very difficult to discern, to distinguish between what is intended and what is unintended. In some cases, when we focus so much on the methodology of machine learning, because as a matter of fact, it's just a way to develop these systems, just a method. You are grounding on the assumption that space data are good data, that the past will repeat in the future, and that's a good thing. So in some way, if we like what these systems are, and they are based on this capability to learn from the past, we cannot also want them to be able to innovate or be correct where the past data reflect a wrong way to behave. So in some way, we have to decide what we really want. I always say that computer science or computer engineering is the continuation of normativity with other means. So we need these systems also to impose, to project an idea of what norms are, what rules are, an idea of order, an idea of control. So we really need to be clear, first of all, with ourselves, but obviously from the corporate perspective, they need to be clear with their customers on what we really want to get from these systems. Once this is clear, once the intended use is clear, and the European regulation stipulates the requirement that intended use must be declared and made very well explicit, then I think that all other things will fit together and be more clear.
Okay. We were having some doubts that we could arrive up to 4 o'clock. Instead, we still have a lot of much to discuss here, but we need to wrap up, right? Okay, a very final remark from everybody, and I'm sure that this discussion will continue. I have a small question for each of you, if you can just answer very briefly, not more than 1 minute, talking about management and talking about business school. There has been, Emma, you must know it very well, there's been a lot of quite a lot of debate recently, including in The Economist and Financial Times that published the ranking of business school. There's been a debate on the crisis of the MBA, of the business school, and the reinvention of the business school. But this is much before ChatGPT, no? And well, my question to you is: this thing accelerating, precipitating, making unmanageable the decision to be made about the reinvention of business school? Yeah, Emma, you are.
Okay, that's a massive question. You say you've got 1 minute and then you give me this massive question. Okay, let me just, I mean, I guess 2 things to say about that. Firstly, as you alluded yourself, this is not a new question. People have been talking about the reinvention of the business school and the MBA as long as I've been in a business school. So, and I don't think that is a bigger question now, to be honest with you, but I still think it's an important question. And I think what's really important here, and perhaps what we don't always do very well in business schools, is be more dynamic and more agile and move and develop with the times in terms of the curriculum, the skills that we're offering, the way that we're delivering it, the way that we're interacting with the people. So I don't think the overall purpose of a business school changes, but I think the way that we offer that and the detail within that does change. And we need to be dynamic and agile and move with that.
Thank you very much. Chris?
If you want me to pronounce on the same topic, I would say that I agree with that. I think that a lot of the friction right now is because of university structures. It's not so easy for universities to spin on a dime, as we say, and to develop new programs. I think I can see there's a trend toward more proliferation of MSc programs that are more specialized, and a trend away from general MBA, and maybe a slight increase in sort of like technology MBAs over time. So I feel like that's probably those are the biggest trends right now, and I think that those will help restructure business schools over time. If I could just make two things for people to look at regarding the prior conversation, I would look at this Narayanan paper or slide deck on AI snake oil, where he talks a lot about social predictions and why we shouldn't be using AI so much. We shouldn't rely on AI so much for social predictions. And then for the last point about Giovanni's question, to get back to some of these things about firing people over AI, I would recommend seeing the film Up in the Air, which I thought was a hilarious film, a great film, and where they were talking about, can we fire people over Zoom back then? It was like 10 years ago. Definitely worth watching. Thanks.
Alex.
Yep. Looking at this, I think any educational program or subject that looks for, it's either emerging now, becoming popular for the first time, or is looking for a transformation. This is where you'll see the most growth in terms of applications in educational technology. Either it's AI teachers or holding on to your curriculum and your personal education over time. I'd keep an eye out for any innovation. If it looks like a field's going to transform itself, this is probably where it's most vulnerable to these changes in technology. We see a lot of schools at Prime becoming a lot more open and open to help with their systems. So the shift of processing unstructured text documents to a structured system especially if data protection is assured and the systems are safe. There's an increasing openness here. So hopefully this transformation accelerates. Big fan of the timeline where we keep accelerating.
Thank you so much, Federico.
Obviously, I agree with those who answered this question before. I am, because, well, I'm not an expert, so I totally trust them. I would like to add one small and probably very simple thing. Business schools are made, are supposed to be closer to business than regular schools. So I think that now more than ever, we really need this role of bridge between academic research and real business, because now we have technologies that can have a huge impact, also a social impact, an ethical impact that requires a two-direction bridge. So business schools could be the driver for a better communication between business stakeholders and practitioners and researchers. So I think that their role is even more important now than it was before.
Thank you very much, Federico. We were even on time. It's 4:02. And Gianbattista, you want to conclude? Okay. So thank you very much. And I really hope we can see you even tomorrow at the last session of at least the one that I'm chairing on healthcare and medical research, in the case artificial intelligence. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, everyone.